I'm Michelle Johnson, Dr. Michelle Johnson, the Executive Director of the Institute of Public Scholarship and one of the co-founders of this institute. We're here at 313 North Burdick, and this is part of one of our series of Remembering the Block, where we investigate and explore the history of the people and the organizations and the stories that have laid the incredible foundation for just this block and a little bit south and a little bit north. But in just this one block, we have illustrious people like Judy Sarkozy. We interviewed James Palmore, and we have a host of other folks coming along. And so, yeah, it's a really fabulous series, and it's so important for us to know the shoulders that we stand on here. And these are some of the strong shoulders that we have here today. So again, thank you, Judy.
Certainly.
As I was saying, one of the things I'd like to do is talk a little bit about your family heritage and to go as far back as you'd like to go in terms of, you know, your ancestry and where folks are from and any key themes that you've seen in your family history that you've either wrestled with or reconciled or carried on.
Okay, well, I can't go very far back, but obviously all of us go way back. But I think the most important part for me is I have had the advantage of knowing a lot of strong women through my whole lifetime, and that I'm sure is what really got me on my feet and going. I had two cousins or aunts who served in World War II. I had a cousin that lived, a distant cousin who lived next door, who, when I was 6, said to me, "You're going to be good in math." "Yes, ma'am." Okay. And she also said to me at one point, she was very short, so she looked up, and she said, "Don't you ever depend on a man."
How old were you when that?
Whoa, I was probably a young teenager. But I had a grandmother who had pretty much farmed most of her life, and so I grew up and we raised chickens and we had a big, huge garden, and we lived on the corner of a big farm, so we kids worked on the big farm.
And where was this?
Outside of Flint.
What's
Flint Township.
Mm-hmm. What's the closest? Is there another city close to that, or is Flint's the closest?
Oh yeah, it's not far outside of Flint. It's about a mile and a half outside of Flint.
Okay, is it north? Which direction out?
You know, I think it's south and east.
And so your grandmother, what's your grandmother's name?
Angeline, Angie, she was called.
And what was her last name?
Sharp.
Sharp.
Yeah, and yeah, I never used her name, of course.
Right. Yeah. That's
why
a
I hesitated. Yeah. So there was that, and just a lot of very lucky things, like my father happened to know, had gone to school with a Chinese guy who ran a Chinese restaurant. And so our family was always invited on Chinese New Year's to see this fabulous food that was unlike anything I'd ever seen. And I was a cute little 6-year-old or whatever. And so I was the darling of the kitchen, and I got to hang out with the guys who were using these great big woks, and it was fabulous.
This is at 6 years old.
Yeah.
Were you doing any cooking, or were you just out there?
No. I was just being in the way.
And they graciously allowed
They very graciously allowed me to do that, yes.
Well, I want to back up a little bit. You talked about, was it an aunt Who, the one who said, don't ever rely
Yeah.
on a man. What was her name? And tell me a little bit
Her
about
name was
her.
Florence Bishop.
Hmm.
She was a teacher, taught geometry at Flint Central. And she had come to Flint in 1921. They were building the Buick plant then, and there was a huge influx of people. So they brought in a whole bunch of teachers and they put them in a dormitory. And that's where she met her partner, and they built a house during the Depression for $2,400. Um, and and she wrote a geometry book, which was used in high schools. There's a story too, because the company that was publishing her geometry book said that they couldn't have a math book go with a woman author. And so she would have to have a co-author. And so some man came from Detroit and reviewed her book a little bit, and then he got first billing and more of the royalties. So she was mad about that. That kept her alive, being mad, until she was in her late 90s.
And so was this in the 20s or 30s that she wrote that? Do you know?
No, it was later. It would have been probably in the 40s, I would say. Maybe in the 50s. Oh, no, it had to be earlier than that because, yeah, well, it might have been in the 30s.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever seen the book?
Oh, yeah.
You do still have it?
No, I don't have it, but yeah, I know another person who has a copy. It was used it sold over 1 million copies.
Wow.
So, and it was used in high school geometry classes.
And so this was an aunt or a cousin?
My grandmother's cousin, and I don't know even how, and I know she was fairly distant from my grandmother, but she was allowed to come to Flint because there was someone she was related to. So,
Oh,
so her
they
family
didn't
let
just
her.
take anybody. They were
Well,
trying to
no,
connect.
no, her family wouldn't have let her come if
Oh,
my grandmother wasn't there. If she didn't have a relative there.
so where are your family's origins? I know your grandmother was in Flint.
Yeah,
Where
but
were they before Flint?
pretty much. I think my mother was born maybe in Maumee, Ohio, and pretty much northern Ohio and Michigan.
Mm-hmm. And I don't think I got what's your mom's name?
My mother's name is Lucille with one L. Lucille Sharp Killeen is my birth name.
Killeen?
Uh-huh.
How do you spell that?
Killen.
Killen. Killeen. That was your maiden name.
My birth name.
Your birth name. Tell me. So what? Tell me. There sounds like a story there.
Well, a maiden name. I was not a maiden when I got married.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I was.
You said you weren't a maiden.
So maiden has nothing to do with that.
Okay.
It's my birth name.
So your birth name was Colleen.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And that was your father's.
My father's name. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So tell me a little bit about your mom.
She was an interesting woman.
As mothers usually are, right?
Yes. She came from a family that had been bankrupt a couple of times, and suddenly a very rich relative, a woman whose husband made his fortune in railroads, and she had her own rail car. And her rail car came to Flint, and then her automobile that was on the rail car drove to my mother's house and said that what she was doing was going around the country making sure that all of the women got an education. And so my mother wouldn't have gone to college otherwise. So she went to U of M, and was a math major, although my father always said the only thing she learned to do was multiply, but that's okay.
So what was this? Do you know the name of this relative that had the rail car?
Swain was the last name. I don't know the first name. I'm pretty sure it was Swain, yeah.
And where were they? Do you know where they were based?
Out east
Out east.
is all I know, yeah.
And so your mom was related to Swain, who had married this railroad
Yeah.
tycoon, so to
Yeah,
speak.
well, Swain, I think, was the tycoon, but
Do you know how many college educations this relative paid for?
I
But you
don't.
know your mom.
yeah.
So what years was your mom in Ann Arbor at U of M?
Oh gosh, probably. When would that have been? She was out. She was certainly out of it by 35. So she must have been there in the early 30s, 1930s.
So had she started her family yet at that time?
No,
or- no.
She knew my father because they had grown up in the same neighborhood, actually, in Flint. So she knew my father, and they got married when she was a sophomore
In college.
in college. Yeah.
How about your dad?
My father was named George Franklin Killeen and was probably the most complicated person maybe in the world, I think. Maybe he comes in second.
Let's hear that. Who's the first one? I'm really curious.
I don't think I've met the first one yet.
So right now he's still standing at
I'm
number one.
I'm allowing for them to be another more complicated person. But he was a lawyer, went to U of M Law School, and ended up with his own. He had his own law firm, and he was trans, and he had both. He was married to my mother for however many years, while he had some long-term affairs with women, and I know those details. I don't know about his life with men. So that gave my mother in those days, that was very difficult in the 50s. To be trans was almost, but he stayed on the edge. He took hormones, but he stayed on the edge. So he had long fingernails and diamond ring and didn't have any hair on his arms and things like that. But he came off as a man in his lawyering, and I think very few people knew that he had this very complicated life.
So he would present as masculine presenting in his work life.
Yes.
And then, so would you see this transition? Or
The main time I saw it was the University of Michigan used to have a traveling, what do they call those things? It was a show put on by students, male students, and they did all the female parts, and so that was a way that they could be evident. So when that came to town, the U of M club men, some of them, then dressed as women, and so my father would dress in a formal, and always had a cigar to show that, oh no, he's really, yeah. And I got to, the thing I loved about it was in the movie theater, and I got to be in the glass booth, and there was a board of tickets behind me, and I got to sell people tickets, and I loved that. That was,
So you were working the event.
yeah, yeah.
So, so this is the 1950s, and you said he was taking hormones.
Yeah.
Do you know how that
I have
works?
no idea.
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea.
Mm-hmm.
My guess would be that people weren't paying that much attention, that a doctor could get away with it just because it wasn't an issue. I mean, it wasn't a spoken about issue.
So how did your mom accommodate all this? So
That
you
was
said
hard.
multiple affairs
Yeah.
and a lifestyle that wasn't normalized
Right,
at that time.
yeah. It was hard for her. She was worried. Well, I have three brothers and two sisters, and she and we're all spread out. The lore is that she used kids to keep the family together and to keep my father. Yeah. So she was worried about the boys, and so the boys didn't have to do beans. They got away with everything, but that's okay. And she just gritted her teeth and carried on.
And did they remain married throughout their lives?
Yep.
Which one of your parents passed first?
My father died first in his 60s, and my mother in her 70s.
How was her life after your father passed?
Not too good. He didn't leave much money, and she was not. She had never managed her money, so she was digging a very deep hole when she died.
Well, tell me. You said three brothers, two sisters. What's the
Girl,
lineage?
boy, girl, boy, girl, boy.
Okay. So what's your
Right hand, left hand, right hand, left hand, right hand, left hand. 3 years, 5 years, 3 years, 5 years, 5 years.
Wow. Okay. So the first was a brother.
No, girl.
Girl. Who's that?
Mary.
And what year was Mary born?
Oh, I'm going to say something like 33. Wait a minute. Oh, I can figure that. 90. My brother Fred is 90, so he was born in 1935.
1935.
And my sister then was born in 1932.
And so is Mary still living?
No.
Fred is, though.
Pardon me?
Your brother Fred is still living?
He is.
And where is
Yep.
he?
He's in Bay City.
Okay. Oh, that's who you just went to visit?
Is one of them. Yep.
And so we got Fred first, then
No, Mary first,
Mary
Fred,
first.
then me, Judy.
And what year were you born?
41.
And when's your birthday?
I'm not telling that.
Okay. I mean, I'm just going to have to wish you happy birthday every month.
It's in August, I'll tell you that.
Oh,
right.
Is it near us?
She's going to get it out of me.
I'm
Yeah.
going to try.
Yeah.
Have you had your birthday yet this
Yes,
month?
I have.
Okay,
Yes,
happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you.
And then after you?
George.
George.
And he was,
So he's a George
he was-
Jr.?
well, my father was George Franklin and called Franklin, and he was George Franklin and called George.
Mm-hmm.
And George was born in 44. And then Patty, or Pat, as we now call her, was born in 49. And then Jeff was born in 54.
Oh, so there's a little bit of a
21 years between the top and the
years.
bottom.
So she was having kids off and on for
Yep,
21 years.
yep. And she was sick of them by the end.
Well, and it sounds like, she had some stress with your dad, too.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
Add 6 kids to that. And so still living, it sounds like Jeff is still living?
Yeah, everybody save Mary.
Except Mary. Okay. And so tell me a little bit about your family culture. You said that the boys didn't have to do beans.
Well, we were feral children.
How so?
Well, when Jeff, the little one, was about 1, he could walk. That was the important point. We we were playing on the roof because there was a flat spot for him because he could only walk on flat. But the rest of us were climbing around on the roof, and a neighbor pulled in and went nuts. But I mean, we just did things like, and we just, there was a farm next door, so we messed around over there. I learned to drive at 11 on a 1938 Buick, so I could drive anywhere I wanted. My sister started driving at, I don't know, Pat started driving at maybe, I don't know, 12, 13, and used to sneak out at night and drive down, because we lived out in the country, and drive down to her friends, and they'd have fun, and then she'd drive back, and we were unsupervised huge amounts of time.
And what did that do for you?
Well, first of all, I had to look after the 3 younger kids. Mm-hmm. So that was a lot, but it was also what did it do? It grew me up fast. I knew I didn't want children. I decided that when I was 6.
Was it because of these?
No. It was because I thought my grandmother was sort of cool. She had her problems, but sort of cool. My mother was wacko, and I was sort of cool, and so my children would be wacko.
Oh, you thought it was going to skip?
Yeah, I thought it was going to skip every generation. So I thought, oh man, I'm not having any kids. But also then all the caring for the kids. Jeff is 14 years younger than I am, so he came home at a time when my mother had it, and so he was, when I was not in school, he was mine, basically, to look after.
Your mom had that degree in math.
Mm-hmm.
Did she work in the field at all?
Mm-mm. Nope. Nope. She almost did something during the Depression. Oh, it would have been after the Depression. But anyway, she never did. She ended up no.
So where did you go to high school?
Flint Central.
Flint Central. Tell me a little bit about Flint Central. What year did you graduate?
59.
Flint
Central was a good place. It was a good school. It was, and right next door was Whittier. It was as most schools were at the time. It was well, first of all, Flint's a lot like Detroit. It has the same immigrant groups, same black migration, all of that. So it's like living in a small Detroit, and I loved it, except I hated school. But I liked.
You hated school. What did you hate about it?
It never caught on for me, and that's why I ended up getting a PhD, because I really didn't like school.
Help me make that sense of that.
Well, I just kept going to school till they kicked me out, and there weren't any more degrees, so they said, "See ya."
So I want to back up to Flint. So you're exactly right. Flint was it's like a microcosm of what was happening in the state in terms of migrations and segregation, and in some places integration. So could you talk?
And the good thing
about
that? Central was maybe, I don't know the proportion of I certainly don't know the proportion of immigrants, although there were a lot of Chaldeans there. So the grocery stores were all Chaldean. The black population in Central itself was maybe a third of the kids.
That's a pretty high percentage.
And it was good because it was a good enough percentage to, and I might be wrong on that. Whittier, my junior high, I think was maybe closer to a third, and Central was maybe a little less than that. So it was a good, lively and for me, it was just, there were all these new things, when I was meeting these kids.
Because you were living on the farm, right? You were living kind of a farm life, and then you would come to Flint, and that was a very different. It seems like a very
I went into Flint schools. So we paid tuition, and I went into Flint schools because I was into music.
What kind of music?
I played oboe and piano badly.
Both of them badly?
Both of them badly.
Is that by your own assessment, or did other people say this too?
I learned how bad I was because I went to Interlaken for a summer, and decided that I'd better enjoy music by listening, because those kids were so good, and I learned.
How old were you when you went to Interlaken?
That was in '57, so I was 16.
You went for the whole summer?
8 weeks, yeah.
8 weeks.
Yeah.
So what was that like?
That was fabulous.
Tell me.
Oh man, that was how you say, a peak experience. Well, there was just music everywhere, and everywhere you went, somebody was practicing and somebody was learning new stuff, and I got to sing in a chorus in the Verdi Requiem, and I heard all kinds of new music that I hadn't heard before, and there were all these fabulous kids. I mean, they were just, and they were as weird as I was. So I didn't know that there were that many weird kids in the world.
So how did that experience at Interlaken shape some part of who you are now?
Well, certainly my music and listening to the music and learning music, and music is really important to me. So so I'm in heaven when it's the Gilmore time.
So what does music do for you?
I don't think I probably know. It's solace when you need solace. It can certainly brighten my mood. It can be exquisitely. It can express deeply, deeply tender and exquisite things that just don't get expressed very often. And
and so some of that foundation was laid for you when you went to Interlaken.
Yeah,
I understand.
yeah.
That.
Yeah. And before I got into classical music because I was such a nerd that I didn't want anything to do with what the other kids were doing. And so I got in that and stayed in that. It was sort of a little, shelter for me.
So it sounds like kind of early you saw yourself as distinctive from...
An alien.
Not just distinctive, but an alien. Tell
Absolutely.
How so? What?
I've always felt like an alien. I don't know why, but I always have.
What did you feel alienated from in the community you were in?
Oh, it's not alienated from. It is being other. So,
and what was that other that you were that?
I don't think I knew at the time. I think now looking back, probably I never learned to be a proper girl because I knew how to fix a tractor and I knew, and I raised chickens and we outdoor work anyway, we did pretty evenly. So the girls worked the way the boys did outdoors. Indoors, the girls got, they got stuck with the. On the other hand, that's how I got into opera, interestingly. On Saturdays, we did housework, and we turned all the radios to WJR in Detroit, and they had the opera on, or they had the Michigan football game, either one. And when it was the opera, I was just, it's like, man, I want to go see that someday. I couldn't, and I tried to figure out what is it about, and this Milton Cross would come on and he'd explain what's going to happen in the next act, and I'd say, okay, I gotta remember that. And I never did, never figured it out. It's much easier today when we have subtitles. But it was just intriguing to me.
When did you see your first opera?
When I was in graduate school. The Metropolitan Opera used to come to Detroit on the train, and I saw a couple of operas there.
Was it as impressive as you?
Oh yeah, I loved it. Yeah. And now that you can go to the movies and see them, oh, that's heaven.
So we've got you graduating in 1959. Do you immediately go to Ann Arbor, to U of M?
Yep.
What did you study?
Fast as I could go.
You were out of Dodge.
I was out of there.
And so you went to Ann Arbor. So you graduate 1959 in this May or June.
In the fall. In the fall I went to.
And what were you studying then?
Architecture. I started out in architecture, and I did that for 2.5 years.
What drew you to architecture?
I'm not really sure. There was just something about building. And then I didn't know it at the time, but I have what's called aphantasia, and it is that I have no mind's eye. So, for example, if I imagine, if you imagine an apple, you can tell me what color it is, right? What color is it?
It could be green, could be red.
There you go,
right?
but you can see it,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And can you turn an apple around?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If I imagine an apple that's just black.
Even though you know cognitively that it's red or green
exactly,
or whatever, but you don't see it in your mind's eye that way.
I don't see faces, so it's hard to learn names. Mm-hmm. And I don't see anything in my mind's eye.
So you don't see faces in your mind's eye, but when you see faces when you're looking at people, or
yes, but it's hard to remember.
Face blindness, yeah.
Yeah. It's related to face blindness, I think.
And have you always had that?
Yes, but I didn't know it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know it until a couple of years ago. They just really delineated it about 15 years ago.
So that's fascinating to me. So until a couple of years ago, you were seeing the world in a particular kind, or not necessarily seeing the world, but seeing your imagination in a.
I thought, I'd say, oh yeah, I see that blah blah blah, but I thought that was just figure of speech.
What do you mean?
That I didn't think that people actually saw something when they imagined it. And then when I found out that they did, I thought, I got cheated. 'Cause, yeah, but I think that's why I ended up not finishing in architecture. Now looking back,
Because you still had to kind of be able to imagine
well,
something.
you got to
to
be able to,
to
yeah, think of something and sketch it. Well, I can think of something, and I could. Well, there's a movie out now called, maybe it's Hail Mary. It's a science fiction, and the guy who wrote that, he wrote a book, and he also wrote the screenplay, and he has aphantasia. And so when he saw the movie, he said, "That's what it looks like." I can't explain how that works.
Does anybody else in your family have? Do you know of?
Not that I know of.
So I've got so many questions. So you in architecture, and then so what did you shift to from architecture?
So I dropped out of architecture after 2.5 years, and I said, I'm not going into psychology. So, of course, I went into psychology. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm not doing that. So I got into psychology, and then I got into a weird situation where I worked for a guy. I worked for a number of people in the psych department and in the biology department, but I worked for a guy who had a joint appointment in engineering and psychology, and that fit me because I'd had a bunch of engineering courses already because of architecture, and I loved that. I loved his way of thinking, and it was anyway. Then he got in a squabble with the two departments, and he went off to the engineering department. So he couldn't be my professor anymore because I didn't have enough engineering to go to engineering. So I stayed in psychology. So I went over to Detroit to Wayne State, and I said, "Will you take me?" This was in August.
Kind of a little close.
And yeah. And they said, "Sure, school starts in a week," or something like that. So they took me. So then I spent time in the med school there, and I spent time at the
This is still undergrad, or no? This
is grad. And then I went to the University of Oregon on a special arrangement and spent time there as a biology student, and then came back and finished up. So I was interested the whole time in what's called information theory. And I was interested in what happens in a few nerve cells when there's been a change, like if an animal has learned something. So one of the things I worked on were aplysia, which are sea slugs. And they have 9 cells that run their heart, and they're big, and you could get electrodes in them, and you could, and so we were exploring that system, and what we really found was we didn't have enough computer power to figure it out. We could not, and so now now they talk about, we called them cell assemblies at that time. Now they talk about nerve nets. And they study them, in computers they have. But I was working in wet nerve nets, basically.
What's a wet nerve?
Wet nerve in that they're brain cells.
So how big is a sea slug?
Like that.
Oh, they're good size.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, now they would have the computer technology to be able to
try to do what we
questions.
do, but they can do so much more. What we were doing was so primitive compared to what they do now. It's a joke.
But it still sounds like people don't necessarily think about sea slugs very much, but that it is a very complex neurological network that.
Well, except that there are only 9 cells that run the heart. So that's the smallest network I could find. I had worked with crickets and cockroaches and other insects, looking for a good system to work. And the sea slug was, I thought, oh man, we got it now. 9 cells, we can figure that out. But didn't work. I mean, it was.
So that was your dissertation?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What was your, you got your undergraduate degree from Michigan?
Uh-huh.
In what?
Psychology.
Psychology, okay. And then Wayne State for grad school?
Yep.
Wow, that is something. You applied for grad school in August, and got in for the,
I just lucked out.
yeah.
I was just totally lucky.
Mm-hmm. And did you know what you wanted to pursue when you presented
Kind
yourself
of
to
because
them?
of the association with his name was Spike Tanner, with the engineering part.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that I was interested in using information theory to describe brain processes.
Mm-hmm. And so, tell me just a little bit about information theory. What's in a nutshell?
Oh gosh. Well, Shannon and the boys, uh, information theory got kind of brought up in, I'm going to say the 50s, maybe a little earlier than that. And it was I think the simplest way to put it is it treats a system through understanding how information is processed. And it's very interesting. There's a philosopher, Yuval Harari, who he doesn't call it information theory anymore, but uses it to describe governments, and so it's for me it's the kind of the basis of everything. How does information travel and work? How does this system work? And it has little to do with I mean, like our government. I'm not going to get into this, but our government. The big difference between a democracy and communism is the way information is used and flows. So in communism, it's all top down, and so if this guy makes a mistake, you're in trouble. In democracy, it's a series of conversations. The excuse me, the League of Women Voters and the oil companies and you name it, and it assumes that we are all fallible, and so every piece of that system has to have something that is a correcting thing. So the administration, the Supreme Court is part of that role. Universities are part of that role. And universities have a self-correcting system in the publishing, because when you publish, then your peers take a look at it, and so it's not the person that is in the role that determines how that functions, because we're all fallible. Give us all $1 million and we'll be, well, no, $1 billion. Give us all $1 billion and we'll be as much of a jerk as some people that we know.
Not naming any names.
And I'm not naming any names because I don't want to go to jail. But so it's, for me then, this whole, and that maybe is a theme. I hadn't thought of that in my life. It's figuring out the system, and I didn't know until I got into graduate school or actually late undergraduate, that sorting out how that system, any system functions, is that's kind of what I do, I think.
So I want to come back to systems, and particularly how you brought that systemic understanding to your work at Sarkozy's, but also in the community. But I do recall a conversation that we had when we got together some time ago, where you talked about your aunt Florence, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And you mentioned that she had a partner.
Yes,
I wonder if you feel comfortable talking about that.
I do.
Yes.
I do. She did not. After all, they were born. She was born. Florence was born in 1893. And their house was, again, as a little girl, I kind of had, well, no one had the run of that house, but she loved my husband, but didn't want him in her house because they had to protect themselves. What they did do then is in the summers, they traveled like crazy.
So let's clear up, your Aunt Florence's partner was a woman.
Yes.
And so she was a teacher.
And as was her partner, Marie Hastings, I think was her name. We called them Florrie, so we put.
They had a name, a blended name before people were blending names.
And she spent holidays with us, and was always until I got older, and she was a teeny little woman. If she weighed 100 pounds, she was real and short. And I'll take up time and tell you my favorite story. I was about 35 when her partner died, maybe 40, 35. And so I was up there a lot to stay with her and help her there. And she was bereft, as you can imagine. And and we had a discussion about, did she want to live or was she going to starve herself because she was not eating? And I said, I'm going to help you whatever you want to do, but if you want to live, you got to eat. So we went through this, and I had Ensure everywhere in the place, and I had all this stuff. So one day I'm at the stove, and she's sitting there, and I don't know, I was cooking something, and I slammed and I had never been, the least bit improper around. I slammed the pan on the stove, and I said, "Damn it, Florence, if you want to live, you've got to eat." And she stood up her whole, 4'10" and said, "You saucy little brat." So yes, that was Florence. She was good. She was she had taken music in college. She went to college. Her partner went to normal school, but she went to college and had taken music. And she told me after Marie died, well, the first thing she did after Marie died was rented to own, she was 95, I think, rented to own a piano so she could play the piano again. So all those years, for whatever reason, and the other thing she did was she joined the church. And she had wanted to join the church, but she felt that she could not.
And you said they would go away on trips in the summer.
Yes, wonderful. Oh, God, they went to Russia and China, and this was in the 50s. And I found a picture of her smoking and standing on a table on a cruise ship. So that was fabulous.
And how long do you think they were together?
They were together from 1931 until, until they died.
So let's see if Marie died when she was 95 and Florence was born in 93.
Yeah,
so until the 80s?
Yeah.
So 50 years or something
Oh,
like that?
easily, yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But she never told you specifically that they...
Never.
Mm-hmm.
Never.
Mm-hmm.
Although she did tell me not to depend on a man. One of the reasons for that was they had to rebuy Marie's family farm twice because the men had squandered it away.
And that was in the Flint area also?
No, that was down near Goshen, Indiana, I think. I'm not sure. She also lived in Plainwell for a while.
Marie did?
Florence did.
Florence. Okay, thank you. Because I remember we had talked about that. There were several stories from our first conversation that stood out. That was one of them, the roof, your dad.
Well, I don't get together very often with my sibs, and we had a gap of about 20 years because we were spread out all over the country. And when we got back together, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, we all said to each other, did it really happen that, we did da-da-da? And were we really on the roof? And we were all sort of scratching our heads saying, it was pretty crazy.
You need each other to validate reality. Huh?
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Well, this is, but maybe going to be a jump because now we're leaving Detroit and Wayne State with your PhD. How did you go from information theory and research with sea slugs to Sarkozy's just down the street?
Yeah, well, leaving the last semester of graduate school, I had 1 credit hour I had to take, I think. Oh, no, my husband did. My husband had one.
And when did you meet your husband?
I was his TA at Michigan. So
you had that 1 credit left.
Yeah, he had 1 credit, and I think I sat in on owning and operating a small business because we had both. I could not stand the sexism in academia. I simply, I couldn't take any more of it. Even though my dissertation advisor, he was wonderful, and he was very egalitarian and supportive and all that, but the rest of the system just was too depressing. So I had kind of decided I was not going to go into academia. And my husband was not thrilled either. My husband was, interestingly, a very strong feminist.
And what was your husband's name?
Ken.
Ken.
And so he didn't particularly want to go in. So we said, all right, let's go someplace and figure out what to do. So this oft-told story, we drew a circle around Detroit, 1 day's drive because we couldn't afford to stay over. And we started looking at small towns because I thought I wanted to live in a small town. Kind of harking back to Flint, but turns out after you put the girl in Ann Arbor, then you're not going back to. And we looked at real little places like Oscoda and stuff like that, and we had a whole bunch of characteristics of the place we wanted to be. Among them was agriculture had to be an important part of the economy because we foresaw the crash that we're now seeing. Only we thought it would come sooner. It had to have a diverse economy because we were both from Flint and he was from Dearborn, and the economy goes like that. And of course, it had to have like a library. And it turns out little towns can't afford that. And it had to have, a strong cultural. Well, we found Kalamazoo, and it ticked all the boxes.
So how did you find Kalamazoo?
Well, two ways. One is we had this book that explored every county in Michigan. Kalamazoo County it ticked a lot of boxes. And so we honed in on Kalamazoo, and lo and behold, my college roommate lived here and started reeling us in. And that was just, it was wonderful. It's just a fabulous place.
And so, did you know when you were coming to Kalamazoo that you wanted to do bakery work, or
We
you
had
just
no
knew
idea.
you wanted to be here and we're going to
We're
figure
going
it
to
out?
figure out, yeah. Interestingly, in our travels, going to look at places, we said, never buy a Reuben between Detroit and Chicago because there isn't any bread. Little did we know that would come to haunt us.
So what
So-
year did you come here then to Kalamazoo?
Ken came in 76, and I finished up and I kept my job so we could move, and then he moved, and then he got a temporary job here, so then I could move. So I came in 77.
Just a year later. And what was your job? You were in Detroit then?
I was teaching at Henry Ford Community College.
And you were teaching in what field?
I'm not sure. I did some. That's interesting. I had forgotten about that. I did some. Was teaching early computer languages, so RPG and Fortran 3, I think.
Fortran, I haven't hered that in a while.
Yeah, right. And Fortran 3 was way before. That was one of the real old ones. And then I also ran a program for seniors. Yeah, so I did that.
And so you moved to Kalamazoo. Ken
Yep.
had a job here.
Yeah.
You got here in 77. How did Sarkozy's happen? How did the bakery happen?
I didn't tell you this story at the.
Yes,
oh, I
you
did.
but we're going to have it on camera.
Okay. All right. Okay. The oft-told story. The cautionary tale of drink. There was a blizzard in 77, and Ken was still working. He was working at his temporary job, and we had just gotten a place to live, and I thought, well, we better prepare because we lived in a very drafty farmhouse, where
Here in this area?
up north of Plainwell. And lying on our mattress on the floor, because we didn't have a bed yet, you could feel the wind go through with the windows closed. So it was pretty drafty. And I thought, well, we better have a decent meal. So I had been, well, first of all, I found a ham hock and some peas and some vegetable, I can't remember what. So and I thought, well, that's kind of a Peasley meal. And I thought, okay, I'll make Julia Child's French bread. And it is, as I remember, a 23-page recipe that tells you all the things that can go wrong and all the other things you can do. And it's got 19 illustrations, and I had been fascinated by that recipe. We were not particularly world travelers. Our international travel was limited to Windsor, Ontario.
Right across the river, huh?
Right across the river. But coming back, we bought the infamous bottle of wine, a liter bottle, not a 750 milliliter bottle, a liter bottle of Ygri Bikever, which means bull's blood.
Ygri, say that again?
Bikever. I'm not sure I know how to spell the
Okay,
Bikever. E-G-R-I.
I'll be phonetic about
Anyway,
it.
it's it's a nice stand-up red wine. Yeah. And so we had, and so I spent the afternoon and part of the morning trying to figure out how I was going to make French bread. And you had to get steam in your oven, and she suggested putting a chunk of metal on the burner and getting it red hot and throwing it into a pan of water, and I thought that was probably too dangerous for me. So I practiced with cold things, and I finally worked out a system where I could get some steam in the oven. But we didn't know anything of French bread. We didn't know what it was supposed to taste like. We didn't know what it was supposed to, I'd seen drawings. But, so we ate the dinner, and we're finishing the wine, and we said of the French bread, it was so good, we could sell this. And literally, that's what happened. And then I set out to write a business plan, and I went to the library and found out about how to get yourself in business, and did that.
So I hadn't, in the story so far, I hadn't heard much of kitchen work or baking.
Well, as you know, I grew up in a large litter. So I did a lot of cooking and baking. And yeah, so I was very confident about and I used to make donuts for the kids when they came home from school and stuff like that. So, and I was always kind of into food. And my mother made Danish pastry one time, a couple times, and we made fruit cakes in October and soaked them in brandy until Christmas. So I did quite a bit of adventurous.
And in bulk too, right?
Yes,
because
in
you had
bulk,
such a
yes.
big family.
Yes. So, and the first day we opened, we had 4 loaves of white, 4 loaves of cracked wheat, 4 loaves of some other whole wheat, I guess.
And French bread.
And 12 loaves of French bread, because that was the smallest recipe that we had. So it was, but we knew nothing about, doing things in this big oven, and yeah, we were we were fortunately adopted by this community because nobody had French bread available, and so people put up with all kinds of terrible stuff that we put out, but they were very nice about it. One time a woman wanted baguettes this long, and they turned out like skis, like this, and we thought, So we gave them to her, and she was very nice about it, but I'm sure we ruined her party.
But you learned something from it, I'm
sure.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yes, yes.
So you started Sarkozy's here at what, 3:20?
3:35.
3:35.
Yep.
What year?
February 25th, 1978.
Okay, so
was
just
a
a year
Saturday.
after you got here. You
was
said February what?
25th.
25th.
It was a Saturday, and we made $21 and 64 cents, I think.
Now, if I recall correctly, that space had been a bakery before?
Actually, the bakery was 2 doors south.
Oh, okay.
And we bought all of their equipment, which was it was all old, beat up stuff. But
what was the name of that previous bakery?
it was I'll think of it. The building was built by a baker named Nicholas Lutten, Lutten. And we have that capstone in our new bakery.
Oh, and that was this direction?
Yep, just south of the hotel.
South of the hotel. So south of Burdick. Or south of Rickman.
South of Rickman.
Oh, okay.
Just south of Rickman.
So it's before your
It's where that park is.
Oh, okay. So how long did you work with his used equipment?
Oh, gosh. Well, till it burned.
So you stuck with that equipment?
Oh, yeah. Well, we bought a few things. We bought a thing that would mold French bread for us. Yeah, and things like when the donut fryer quit, we just stopped making donuts. Um, yeah, when our cake case died, we stopped making cakes. It was a hard slog. It was it was always very close to the vest and always very close to going under, but worked.
And there was a certain point then when it became just you and your husband.
Yes, it started when we started. Well, when we bought the bakery in June, and then we had to move it to that building. We actually had the friends' children brought their wagons, and they moved all the bricks in their wagons. Child labor. They were about 6 and 8 or something like that.
I bet they loved it.
So we moved it, and we had a lot of work to do in that building. So we did. We worked on it until January when we got it.
So
it
good,
going
like
in
6
February,
months
yeah.
or more.
Yeah.
Now, did you purchase a building or were you renting?
We were renting $200 a month.
So, in the spirit of remembering the block, what was this neighborhood like when you moved here?
Well, this was the stroll.
The what?
The stroll.
The stroll. What do you mean?
I mean, this is where the prostitutes paraded. And everybody said, oh, you can't have a business there. And, of course, the implication was it's too close to the black neighborhood. And we had just come from Detroit, where there were the Detroit riots. And I knew the north side of Flint, and I thought, this is actually a pretty good neighborhood, you guys. There's a homeowner in almost every block, and so we didn't see it as any kind of dangerous thing.
So when you got here, Fred was here, yeah? Mr. President?
Fred was here, yeah. And the chair rental was here.
Okay.
And Matthias's was here. Where were here? Here, yeah. And while we were renovating the building, we spent quite a bit of time in Matthias's. The Rickman was in pretty bad shape then, and hadn't been, taken over by a social service agency. Across the street I call it the windmill building, because that's where they built windmills originally.
But now, where was that? I'm wanting to know where that was, the windmills. Right.
Visiting on the corner.
That was where the windmill business was.
Yeah.
Thank you. And were they?
That was empty.
That was empty.
When
so
we
there wasn't any windmill activity going on there.
Oh no, the windmill stuff was long gone. Long gone.
But people knew that's what it had been.
Right. Yeah.
Now you mentioned a taco stand.
There was right next door to us in Dave Crosser's building. And when one day there was a family of Hispanics out standing in the street looking up at the building and talking, and so I went out and I said, can I help you? And they said, our father had a taco shop here in the 40s, which blew me away, the idea that there was a taco shop in Kalamazoo in the 40s. And Dave, one time in renovating something, found a piece of glass that said tacos 5 cents on it.
Oh, that's not around anymore, is it?
That might be. Dave saves everything.
Do you have any idea of the name of the people that had that?
Gosh, I don't.
But it was the 40s.
It was in the 40s, yeah.
And now you also told me that maybe someone told you about a Turkish grocery. I've been on the hunt for that since you told me.
That's all I know is that across the street, and I'm assuming I'm assuming that it was in that parking lot, but I don't know. And it sold Turkish foods because the Rickman was, this is what I heard, the Rickman was built for railway workers, and that's why it's all single unit, you know. And the railway workers at that time were primarily Turkish, at least here. And so you could buy Turkish foods across the street.
Do you know what time period that was?
Well, it would have been early. It would have been, I can't, well, the railroad crash, or the crash caused by the railroad mania was in the 1880s or 90s. So it would have been before that.
Before that, okay. Because I have been on the hunt.
Yeah. I'm guessing, but yeah.
And now, was Neil here? Was Flipside Records when you got?
No, he was
here?
across the street.
Okay, but
Yeah.
he was in the area.
Was he there? When did Neil open? I don't know when Neil opened up. I don't remember.
I think maybe.
I think
around
it's
that
pretty
time
close.
period.
Yeah, yeah. And he was over in the movie house building that's gone.
And then moved over here to this.
Then moved across the street.
And so
yes.
Al was here. Al Yucker was here.
Yes.
And his
Al was,
father, or were any of his father or uncles?
I don't remember his father.
Okay. So what was your community like? I mean, these names that we're naming, these are legends in Kalamazoo, right? You have Fred Jones, Judy Sarkozy, Larry Bell, Neil Jewell, Al Yucker. This is like the who's who of business.
It was fun. It was, first of all, Neil and Larry, just, you know, they were a lot of fun. Larry was so much fun to have as an employee because, you know, he was smart and exciting, and, you know, we really enjoyed him. And so then when he moved down here, by the time he moved down here, I'm trying to think whether he was in the building where he wasn't, where Mary Brown's office was.
So, but did he start in your basement at Sarkozy's later?
No.
Oh, no.
He started in his own basement, in his apartment.
Okay, and then had a storefront here.
He had a storefront here, yeah. But it was a big empty building, and there's a little space in the back that he used, and it was very small. He made some very skunky beer in there, but he got better at it. So.
And that was next door to you? Or
no, it was... I don't know. I'd have to.
Okay.
Look,
and so Dave Crosser was here at the time when you got here?
Dave Crosser, that's interesting. I think he must have been. I don't remember him moving in, and I guess I remember him always being there. So
I have not interviewed Dave yet. I definitely need to.
Okay.
And so. And then, do you remember Emma Harris with Nimble Thimble?
Yeah,
right
Nimble
next
Thimble.
door?
Yes, of course.
I understood that she loved your the nuts. What is? Oh shoot, I can't remember the name of it. It was one of her favorites.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And so her daughter always gets it when she comes here. Yeah.
Yep, I remember her. And some real characters from the Rickman house.
But it sounds like you all were pretty connected and.
You know, Neil was fabulous with street people, and my husband was as well. Both of them had, you know, just a fundamental respect for people, and those two things I think helped bring this neighborhood together. The other thing is, when in 71, I read a book called Small is Beautiful, written by a man who was in the coal industry in England, but he was writing about small businesses, and he he asked the question, which I thought was fabulous. He asked the question, what does work do for the worker? And so he said there were three things. You need to have a successful business in his mind and then in mine. One is it had to be a product that was good. So bread ticks that, obviously, box. But it has to be a necessary and, honorable product. One is that the workers need to be able to use their gifts and to grow in directions that leads. And the third is that, at least as I remember, it could be completely different, but the third is that it has to function in the community, because it has to support the community that supports it. Mm-hmm. So those have been this is weird for a person who can't see in my mind's eye. In my mind's mind, I have a television set with a little extra screen up in the corner. And that's where I put that stuff. And so, because I don't know how to get there. So when I'm down here in my daily working, I look up there and I say, will this get me, when I have to make a decision, will this get me closer to that or not?
One of those three things or all of them?
Yeah, the three things and the outcomes of those three things. It's sort of an ideal world or something that I have just stuck in my brain. And so that's how I operate. It avoids right and wrong. It avoids judgments. It avoids, it's got the principles there, and it holds me to task.
What is, and I think we're probably getting close. What's one example of a way that you lived out those three tenets?
Well, we have finally, after 48 years, I'm a slow learner, after 48 years, our employees work 32 hours a week. They are paid, our goal is to have everybody above the second ALICE level, which is about $52,000 a year, which is outrageous for a bakery, but that's where we're going to go with it. That's where we are going with it. We have very good benefits. So you can make our goal, you can make a career out of, instead of saying, oh gee, this is, all I'm doing is manual labor. You can make a career, and we want to have everybody be able to, have a family and survive their car breaking down. Mm-hmm. And we know we're not going to have huge salaries, but we're going to keep them above the ALICE level, which is right now about $52,000 a year, which is not great.
But it's still right.
Yeah,
it can accommodate a troubling mechanical issue.
Yeah, right. And you can go on vacation, mm-hmm. That kind of thing. So, and you could actually have a kid too. It's hard, but you could. So that the whole thing is, what does work do for the worker? And of course then the way I got on this whole subject is the relationship to the community. Mm-hmm. And so with that in mind, I kind of, started hanging out and recognizing this as a community, not as a not as a forgotten place in Kalamazoo, which it was when we moved in. And that was, before the park over there and the creek thing. And so we were considered, to be way far away.
Someone referred to us as being on an island here.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, there is that. There is that because, all of that. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah.
Oh, I have a million questions, but I'm going to ask two, I think. Now, did you ever watch Columbo?
No.
No, okay. Well, Columbo, with Peter Falk in it, he was a detective,
I don't know.
and he would, whoever he was talking to, they'd think he was going to be done, and he'd be walking out the door, and he'd say, "I've got one more question." I am the Columbo of oral testimony.
Okay.
The first question I want to ask you is: you mentioned that you haven't had any children,
Right.
how do you see your legacy passing on? Because oftentimes people think about their legacy in terms of children. How do you see your legacy?
That's not important to me.
Mm-hmm.
I've said to Alec, who's my co-owner and 50 years younger than I am, I have said to him, I will be around for the 50th anniversary and you need to be around for the 100th. But that's only because it's becoming an organism that helps, that works for people. So I'd like to see that happen, but I don't care. When I'm gone, I'm gone.
But you have passed it on to Alex, right?
Alec. Yes, he is fabulous. He's doing a wonderful job. If he were not here, we would not be open because I couldn't, once I, had trouble with my sight and I can't drive and all that. And by the way, I happen to be old. And so I couldn't be running it.
And so he came on. You had the fire in 80.
Not
in 80. I'm sorry.
In 2012 was the fire.
Was Alec with you?
No.
Then?
No. And we reopened in 2014, and he came along. Well, when he came along just before COVID. That's how we measure things these days. Yeah. And he immediately just started, he'd see something and do it, and the two of us, we've been accused of being twins born 50 years apart. We are so similar, it's just amazing. And I love hanging out with him, and he's brought energy and excitement, and staff loves him. And he's a lot nicer than I am. Like he lets people take days off that I never would.
Well, it sounds like you've also that would have been a struggle to let people off for very long.
Yeah. Well, now we have something like 21 employees. So if he told me the other day, look here, I've got 7 people with days off, and in my day that would have been, I'm alone.
Shut down, right?
Yeah.
So I think this is my last question.
Okay.
And this is what I've asked when folks were here before, and I'm going to ask again. What is your vision for this block? What would you like to see happen here?
That's a tough one. That's a very tough one. You've taken on a big challenge. Unfortunately, my vision is so rooted in my experience here as Sarkozy Bakery that
that's okay.
But if I in one world I would put a bakery in there, and I would put a green grocer across the street, and I would, trying to bring back all that neighborhood feeling. I don't know. I don't know how that's.
I asked James Palmer yesterday if he had $2 million to do whatever he wanted to do here in the neighborhood, what would it be? It sounds like a grocery and a bakery.
If I had $2 million and a tavern, I think it needed a tavern, and yeah, things that where people hang out, and I don't know that a bakery necessarily, but certainly a grocery. And I'm not sure now. Of course, when I was thinking about a grocery here, I there wasn't Park Street Market, and there wasn't. They do a fabulous job.
Yeah.
And they've made it work, and so I don't know that it'd be a grocery, but it would be. I guess I'd put a bar in first.
Harken back to the days of Messiah.
That's right. That's right. Yes, and it would say a working man's saloon.
Well, like I said, this is I'm a liar when it comes to saying it's the last question. I've come to terms with that. You know that Fred Jones passed.
Yes, I do.
In June. How do you remember Fred?
I liked Fred a lot. And he was, the perfect gentleman, and he was very welcoming to me. I'd leave the bakery at 1 a.m. and go over and have a drink. And I was so weird, I was all flowery and white coat and white skin. and he'd sit with me at the bar sometimes. And so I liked Fred a lot. I think he had a frustrating, toward the end, it was like, had trouble finding something that would work and that would make it work. And he had a struggle, and I was very sympathetic to that, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. Did you know his wife? Do you know his wife?
I did
Sandy?
not.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much.
Certainly.
Again, thank you for taking this time. Thank you for the foundation that you've laid for us. Thank you for being a part of the Institute of Public Scholarship and bringing your stories and your energy to us. It's so important. When you talked about you don't care about legacy, we hope to continue to carry on your legacy, and we take very seriously.
Well, I'm touched by that.
The people who were here before us, and again, like I said, the organizations and the businesses that started on the street are legend. Sarkozy's, Flipside Records, Mr. President, Nimble Thimble, Messiahs, the Black Arts and Cultural Center, the Kalamazoo Boxing Academy, the Douglas Community Association. We're talking about organizations and businesses that have had significant longevity and impact, and are continue. Even everybody still knows Neil, and Neil can still do a pop-up, and people care about that.
Yeah.
And it's because all of you, and I've gotten to talk, I never got to meet Emma Harris particularly, I met her family, but all of you have and had and continue to have such a deep commitment to your community. That philosophy that you talked about, and I think that's why it's endured, because you have not just fed people or given people drinks or put on programs, but you have really fed people's spirits. That's why people have such a deep affection for all of those organizations and businesses that I'm talking about. And
well, it was fun too.
And that's the important part. Now we still don't have the community of we've got Prevention Works here. We've got Julie Rogers' office next door. We don't quite have that connectivity to our neighbors that you did, but we certainly hope that we're going to be another one of those organizations that they say they started there, that was their first brick and mortar, and here we are 50, 60 years later, and so we are happy to be in legion with
Yeah,
you,
yeah.
and hope that the Institute of Public Scholarship can stand the test of time with people like Sarkozy's and Mr. President. So, thank you for giving an example of how to be in community, how to commit to a place, and how to prioritize community and their needs and a good product.
Well, yeah, and you have to remember that the community responded strongly. We had two parties where we almost were going out of business, and people came and threw money at us. And so, I mean, and then after the fire, that it wasn't me. It was the response of the community.
And that's because you had sewed into
Maybe.
people over that time.
Maybe.
And just in closing, I also want to say one of the other things that's really distinctive about all of you, all of these businesses, is a strong commitment to racial equity, class equity, gender equity.
Yeah.
And Messias Al Yucker tells me the story is like, if people are starting to talk smack about black people and he said there were two ways they handled it. You could go out the front door peacefully, or they take you out the back and handle you.
Yeah.
And Fred Jones always had a commitment to diversity.
Yes.
I know you took strong stands against folks who was like, I'm too scared to get out of my car. Can you bring it out? And what did you tell them?
I told him, you need to go to another bakery.
Right. And Neil as well. And you all took, as they say, stood 10
That's
toes.
interesting.
Yeah, you all
I hadn't
stood
thought about that.
10 toes down on people need to be treated equitably, that this is an exemplary place to be. This is a great community.
Yeah.
And we're going to serve everybody. And don't come in here with that smack.
Yeah.
And I think that continues to be for us. We came like that way and we feel aligned, but to know that we're part of that long-standing tradition that you helped establish. So thank you for that as well.
Well, my pleasure. Thank you. I'm honored by your feelings and thoughts.
Well, they're very genuine. I am a huge Judy Sarkozy fan, and anybody who knows me knows it. So thank you so much.